Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone got a coffee or a tea, as I am doing, because I have my voice is a little bit cracked today because it's very early here. But I will now speak about the key sustainability challenges and enhancing Mauritius resilience. A very important topic to embed, and it marks a little bit the aimings of what we have in Sustainable Island Mauritius. So as you have seen before, this image of the waves, the COVID-19 pandemic is actually the tip of the iceberg right now. There are other bigger problems and bigger global challenges that are coming, which is basically related to climate change and economic recession and biodiversity collapse. This seems like it's doomsday, but actually we have now realized that with COVID-19, we have seen how everything is so interconnected in this world. And it marks the moment for us to realize that we need to prepare ourselves and our businesses for these future risks. So this is I see now the COVID-19 as a time to rethink how we are going to grow into the future. And basically, as I marked there at the bottom, there is a need, an urgent need to build resilience at this point. One other topic that was mentioned several times by now is that Mauritius is a seeds country. And based on this report from the United Nations University, it marks Mauritius as the country with the highest climate and disaster risk in the Indian Ocean and South China Sea region. And this marks the necessity to build all these capacities and innovations in the business sector, in hotels and tourism operators, so that the tourism sector can become, let's say, kind of an agent of change to support the whole country to become more resilient into the future. Of course, we also have unexpected challenges. As last year, we had the oil spill in July 2020. This was a very sad disaster that heavily affected the coral reefs of Mauritius that are so important, not only for the tourism sector and coastal areas, but for the whole country to absorb, let's say, future shocks from climate change, for example. And also thinking that Mauritius is one of the biodiversity hotspots in the world. There are not so many hotspots in this world, and Mauritius is one of them. We have seen this image before at the beginning with Patrick Botterman's introduction. And I wanted to bring it again just to bring all the challenges together. We have here the global challenges, let's say, in the sky. We have biodiversity loss, COVID-19, climate change, financial crisis. But we can also see that there are national and local challenges that we have been speaking about throughout these workshop presentations. Starting, I would say, to the right with the need to look for community development, to look for more inclusive tourism development is highly needed. And the need of bringing, let's say, more authentic and personalized experiences. This is, let's say, an opportunity that the tourism sector has. We also discussed about challenges such as resource use and electricity, waste, food waste, for example, transportation systems, and biodiversity and the coastal areas that are so important for not only the tourism sector, as many of the developments are located in coastal areas, but also for the communities and for the, let's say, the ecosystem services that biodiversity provides to the people through, for example, the availability of food and, for example, through making a more healthy environment for the population. So all these images, let's say, combined marks the whole picture of the challenges. Second. if we go deeper into the challenges, we have clustered 4 main challenges, starting, for example, with biodiversity degradation that I briefly spoke about. Biodiversity, we have here that the coral reefs are important ecosystems for the country. The stock of live coral cover decreased from 49% in 2002 to only 18% in 2014. For this coral bleach, 50% partially or totally bleached. So as you know, the coral reefs are important ecosystems. It surrounds the whole island of Mauritius as a natural buffer, and thus creating this unique landscape of lagoons that have these beautiful colored waters that has attracted tourism internationally. But not only the coral reefs brings beauty, but also they have the degradation of coral reefs have increased the shrinking of the beaches as much as 20 meters over the last few decades. Also based on the Mauritius government, it is said that the loss of tourism as an effect of eroded beaches could cost over 100 million USD per year by 2060 if nothing is done. So you can see the economical value of what biodiversity degradation means. We also have waste management and pollution. Mauritius in general lacks of waste management infrastructure, which means that most of the waste ends up in the landfill and thus causing greenhouse gas emissions. In total, waste in Mauritius contributes to 19% of CO2 emissions, and the waste generated through hotels and restaurant activities contributes to 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. Similar to the high energy and water consumption in Mauritius, 86% of total energy comes from imported fossil fuels and only 14% from renewable energies. This is an important thing to consider also, as it's that many of the resources come from imported goods. And community development, as I mentioned, there is a need to involve the communities in the process of building a more resilient tourism value chain. And not only for the tourism sector, but for the resilience of the whole country itself. So we think that these 4 are key challenges that we are in this project actually tackling very specifically. And we have developed also a how-to guidelines that would help SMEs and hotels and tourism operators to educate about these key sustainability challenges and also to provide practical key actions to address these topics. So these guidelines, we will show them in a later workshop series. So in general, just to close here, this is a topic that is about changing your mindset on how we think about growth and value. Most people tend to think that growth is only about generating revenue, but today, there is a big necessity on recognizing that human well-being and the natural environment are key for sustainability and are key to generate economic prosperity into the future. Not only to have a healthy space and environment for the people, but also to create resilience. So resilience is a concept that has to be embedded or is embedded in this project very strongly. And it's about the ability of a system to deal with a shock and continue to develop. So if we see in the image to the right, we have a disruption here where the red color starts. And this disruption could be the global pandemic, could be a future storm, could be a financial crisis, could be anything, could be any shock. And the idea is to minimize the red area and prepare the tourism sector and the whole country itself to minimize and to plan on how to reduce these shocks and to be able to recover and adapt quickly to all these challenges that we saw in the waves as I presented in the first slide. So in general, we are trying to see or trying to address the sustainable development goals that were adopted by all United Nations members in 2015, including Mauritius. And these sustainable development goals are the actions that will bring a more sustainable world by 2030. This image particularly includes all the SDG, but they're clustered in different components. And as you see here, the biosphere at the bottom marks the foundation and the baseline of how the other SDGs can grow or can function. Without biosphere, we cannot have a healthy society, and we cannot have an economy that is prosperous in the future. So as mentioned by Johan Rockström, which is a very well-known researcher from Stockholm, he said that the biosphere and the SDGs of the biosphere are non-negotiable SDGs. And these are SDG 15, life on land, SDG 14, life below water, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, and SDG 13, climate action. Without these ones, we cannot drive well-being in a society or prosperous economy. And this is what the MAUFI framework tends to address. That will be further explained by Andreas in the next session.